I do believe I can be one of the best in the world. I've become a world champion, I'm about to hit the UFC, and I'm going to be a UFC world champion one day. Hi, I'm Jordan Vucenic. I grew up in Corby, and yeah, Corby's just a little town, little Scotland basically. When I was young, I was always getting into fights, you know, and I was always smaller, so I was always sort of getting beaten up, but I just sort of took that tough mentality, and I come across MMA, never knew what it was, and just sort of, I was obsessed with it straight off the bat. I found out there was a local gym doing it, and I sort of went in for one class, and then that was it. I was hooked ever since. People would say to me, have you done something before? And I would say no, and they would literally think I was lying. They would say, no, there's no way, you must have boxed, you must have done something. But I'd seen it on YouTube and just watched it so much. I sort of one of them people, if I sort of see something, I can pretty much do it without needing to practice it.
Fighting out of Total Dojo, ladies and gentlemen, Danny Batten!
So Danny Batten was the former Cage Warriors featherweight world champion, you know, 10 years ago, and meeting Danny changed everything for me. You know, he was sort of somebody that had all the confidence and all the belief in me.
You could tell he had something about him. He had good charisma, a little cheeky, physically clearly talented. You could tell he was a smart young lad. But what would happen was he would go away, wouldn't see him for another month, 2 months, then he would come back, do another couple of weeks.
When I first went to the gym, you know, I was in and out. I was having to go where the people that drove were going, as I didn't drive yet.
And then it just was like, hey, Jordan, you've got something about you, but it's being wasted. Don't waste any more time, you know, sign up, let's work together and let's see whether you can make it, because I think you can, but you can't do it the way you're doing it. And he said, right, I'll show you. And that sort of like ignited our relationship, which still goes strong today.
He told me that he wanted to make a Cage Warriors featherweight world champion, and you know, 10 years later, I was the guy that filled that spot for him. Right from the off in the pro ranks, you know, I was straight into hard fights. I fought a multiple world champion in Panikos Yusuf, you know, he's a very skilled striker, and won that by submission. Second fight, I was on ACB, you know, a big Russian promotion. I fought Sharp Yusuf, who in his own right is doing absolutely amazing now, you know, he's sort of beating everybody on the promotion he's on. So going into the third fight, I think I sort of overlooked Luke Ord, who I fought on a sort of smaller show than the first two fights I was on. That was very humbling, and that sort of sparked me to go on this big long win streak. You know, I didn't lose again until become a world champion after that, so everything happens for a reason. The first time I fought for the world title was against Morgan Charrier for the belt. You know, he was a massive star. He had all the hype. He was finishing everybody, you know. He sort of looked untouchable, but fifth round, I was the one egging him on to come back for the fight, you know. And again, that's just that Corby mentality in me, you know, just that sort of like nitty gritty, like let's get after it. Brad Wharton said, oh, there's not long left, and no, Morgan Charrier, he's going to be the guy that's going to go. And I'm the guy that's going to go in those sort of dying stages of the fight. So I egged him on. I says, come on. You know, looking back on it, I just think, what a moment, but yeah, I was ready for it. Ready for anything he was going to throw at me in that last 10 seconds.
After my fight career, I knew that one of those first goals was to make someone in a world Cage Warriors champion. And Jordan being up my weight, that made it even more poignant. He won it 16 years after I'd had that title. That was a great feeling, a really emotional moment, and another sort of like goal put in the bag as a coach, so to speak.
I didn't understand why there were so many critics after it. Since watching it back, yeah, it was a close fight, but I genuinely do believe that I won that fight, rightly so. But again, he's in the UFC and he's killing it, so all the respect to him. And if he can do it, you know, it just shows me that, you know, he can get up there and have the good times, so can I.
My name is Regan Moffat and I'm Jordan Vucenic's fiance. Watching someone you love fighting is like, it's horrible, but you also have to not think about it too much, because obviously it's like their normal 9-to-5 job. It's just not a normal 9-to-5 job.
I get a lot of support from my missus at home. She's always at the fight, ready for me, whether I win or lose, you know, she's always there, ready to sort of tell me it's okay or tell me I've done well. She's the glue that holds us all together.
We have had 2 babies, so that makes altogether we have 3 children.
Growing up, I didn't have a dad. It just makes me want to give my kids everything that they've ever wanted, and never want them to miss out on anything. Wouldn't change anything about any of them, from Gray's beautiful curly hair to Saint's big chubby head and his big hands, and Arthur's quiff on his hair, you know, it's just all these things. Yeah, I wouldn't change them at all.
When Jordan and Paul Hughes had their second fight, I was really heavy pregnant with Saint.
Going into the Paul Hughes 2 fight, you know, what a build-up, you know, all the promos, everything.
Obviously, they faced each other twice. The first fight wouldn't have been as close as it was if it wasn't for the fence grabs. But it was a close fight, but Jordan got the nod on it. That second fight, that was hard to go through, both obviously for Jordan, but for us as coaches and fans of Jordan, that was really, really difficult.
It was for the 145-pound belt and it was Cage Warriors 145. That was something that will always stick with me, you know? And it just wasn't my day on that day. Props to Paul Hughes, you know, he had the perfect game plan.
MMA is such a beautiful sport because there's so many ways to win, but therefore there's so many ways to lose. But what Jordan did show in that fight was he's got staying power and he can still think under physical duress and hurt and pain. I mean, this was a very, very painful experience for Jordan.
Sitting, watching that fight was just awful. Watching your partner get hurt, and then there's people cheering, obviously from the Irish fans, which is fine because they're Paul Hughes' fans, but at the same time that's my partner and I'm watching them literally get beat up. It was horrible.
What a fight, Paul, and what a show of sportsmanship now from Paul Hughes.
It was like the world just came crashing down on me. I don't know, I've got my beautiful, amazing family at home, but just in that moment, that's the only thing you can think about. You know, Paul Hughes gets a flag thrown in, and you know, if that was anybody else, you know, they'd have lifted the flag, they'd have jumped on the cage, they'd have celebrated, but he didn't. He placed it back down respectfully, and yeah, we sort of like hugged and we had our words. He's given everything, I'm giving everything, so there's respect, you know, it's earned, not given. I think 99% of men would have quit in that fight, but there was not anything in me would have let myself quit, you know, and I trained that hard where it would be an insult to myself to have gave up in that fight, you know. I mean, I've got the skill set where I could have still finished the fight at any moment. Like I just said, it just wasn't my day, but as much as I love Paul Hughes, you know, we're going to run that back third time, whether it be Cage Warriors, UFC, but you know, everybody knows that's going to be run back, and I'm pretty sure everybody's going to be tuning in for that one. It's going to be an amazing story when I achieve the things I'm going to achieve from MMA. You know, it's going to be nice to look back on and say, yeah, I come from that and I rose above it.
It all starts here. He's come through the fire. Will he come out the other side?
After the fight, there was a lot of facial damage, a lot of scarring that he had to have rehabilitated.
You can see it shows in the fight. I do look gun shy on the feet, and Ferrante lands one shot. Wasn't a big shot, but it was enough for me to think, right, I've got to take this down to the ground now. I've got to sort of, again, path of least resistance. I need to save these cuts, and realised quite early on into the first round that we were levels apart on the ground, and second round come out, took him straight down, got the submission. I was so paranoid about the cuts. No disrespect to Ferrante, I think he's a great fighter, but the cuts were sort of what made him look better than what I could have made him look, you know. Going into the Bryce Baccord fight, you know, again, another guy that I just props him, but I think I'm levels above him, you know, but he had that dangerous one-punch power. By this time, I was more confident in the scars. My last opponent was someone called Simone D'Anna, and you know, full confidence, I just knew I could take whatever he was gonna give me, and I knew I was ready to dish it back. And yeah, I got the second round finish. You know, I'm on a run of finishes at the minute, and yeah, long may it continue.
Jordan's a full package. This guy can grapple at a world-class level, he can wrestle at a world-class level, and clearly we've seen in the past on Cage Warriors he can strike at that level too.
My next opponent's Adrian Kepper. He's a very tough guy. He's getting on a little bit, but he's had some tough fights, he's had some big wins. He's beat a former Cage Warriors champion before, so look, I'm just happy to get in there and test myself. New weight class, new version of myself, and hopefully it's an even better version. I hope it's the UFC for me next, you know. It's a very long driven goal. I believe I've done enough, but you know, only time will tell, but yeah, fingers crossed that's the call up I get after this fight.
Bigger things to come for Jordan, for sure. You haven't even seen what he's fully capable of, but you will in time, and you'll be impressed.